Good morning, everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Rainer, and this is Rainier Books, and I just love books. Today I want to do another of my single reviews, and I'm wondering actually if I should rename this segment from I've read something to this book. This book that I read is Angela Flournoy's latest novel, The Wilderness, which was published on September 16, which is actually my beautiful birthday. Angela Flournoy, she was pretty famous, she was getting pretty famous in the literary world in 2015 when she published her first novel, her debut novel, The Turner House, which was a finalist for the National Book Award, which was nominated for 11 awards and received 3 of them. After that, Angela Flournoy has published no new novel, but she almost immediately started working on the second novel, which is The Wilderness, but it took her 8 years to really complete this novel. She had actually written the first chapter of this book, which is called You Can't Pronounce It, in the time she was at graduate school, before she started working on The Turner House. But then she thought that this was a short story, and she put it aside, and after finishing The Turner House, thinking about the next project, she returned to that story and developed it into a whole novel. There has not been so much talk about The Wilderness on BookTube. I'm quite surprised, although the book's already 6 weeks almost on the market. Whereas The Turner House, which I have not read yet, deals with a large family in Detroit, Michigan, a family of 13 children. We have now a book, The Wilderness, that deals also a lot with family, but here from a different angle. We have 4 female Afro-American friends at the core of the book. All of them are born in the early 1980s. We have Desiree, we have Nakia, we have January, and we have Monique. And we have Desiree's sister Danielle, which is not one of the 5 main protagonists of the book, but she's a very important character, apparently, of course, for her sister Desiree. The book opens in 2008, as I said, with the short story, or with a chapter in this case now, which is called You Can't Pronounce It. And here we have young Desiree. She's in her mid-20s, I guess, or early 20s. She's on her way to Paris. They are, because she's not alone in the plane. She's in an airplane, and they are descending towards Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, France. On board is her grandfather, Nolan. Nolan has raised both Danielle and Desiree because their mother died when they were very young, and their father has never been really a part of their lives. So Nolan has taken care of these 2 girls, and Nolan is on his way to France and further on to Switzerland with his daughter Desiree to what? Yeah, to commit suicide, to commit assisted suicide, which is legal in Switzerland, one of the few countries in the world where it is legal. And this reminds me of a certain book by Andrew O'Hagan that I read also some years ago, where assisted suicide in Switzerland is also a topic, but it has nothing to do with it. It's just the fact that you can go to Switzerland, which occurs here. Nolan and Desiree are on their way to Switzerland, and Desiree is very sad. Apparently she knows that she's going to lose her grandfather, but the big thing about it is actually that Danielle, the older sister of Desiree, doesn't know anything. She doesn't know that her sister and her grandfather are on the way to Switzerland and that her grandfather will not return to the United States. So this is something that will divide the sisters ultimately for decades at least, and maybe they will never get together again, but I won't spoil that novel for you, because I never spoil anything for my viewers. I try to do that, at least. In its structure, and here comes the part that You Can't Pronounce It, the first chapter was actually written as a short story. You could say that the structure of the novel consists of 12 intertwined and connected short stories. I would almost say that. There's a third part, which is stylistically pretty different. I won't go into that because otherwise would have to spoil a lot for you. There are 12 short pieces, and they are not chronologically put together. So we start in 2008 and we enter 2027 because that's the time span of the novel, of the events in the novel. No, we don't do that. Because first we have this chapter from 2008, which is called You Can't Pronounce It. The second chapter is called Uptown, and it plays out in 2018. So that's 10 years later, right? And this actually is something that can confuse the reader. I have not put a notebook beside my reading when I read The Wilderness, But it actually could have helped because Angela Flournoy, she jumps from 2008 to 2018 in the second chapter, where I would say January is in the focus. And then she moves back 6 years again to 2012. And then she moves forth and back and forth. And that's really something that can irritate a reader. It's beautifully done. It's amazingly done. And it's a great structure of the novel. But the reader has to be very, very observant to really understand everything that has happened, that is going to happen once you read it, and so on. In Uptown, we have all the friends mentioned. We have January in the focus, but we also have Desiree, Nakia, Monique. And January has to stay in the United States in this chapter, and her other three girlfriends, they are going on a girl trip, on a sister trip to Martinique, to the island of Martinique, and we have a lot of social media in that novel, and especially in that chapter, where they do, the three women, they do hashtags melanin on vacation, black girls do travel, browned and blessed, Afro pups and passports, hashtag sisters with saving accounts. These are the hashtags that they use at a point for their social media on Instagram. January's boyfriend, Morris, he is the general manager, quote, of their lives, but it was actually January who had become the overseer of their affairs. He's looking for a new place for them to live in Fort Greene. I'm a European reader, I'm a Swedish reader, I'm a German reader, and I have never been to New York, so I didn't know anything about Fort Greene. I had to look it up. So that's always the case once you read literature, not only American literature, but this book also, Fort Greene, look it up, and I found out that Fort Greene is a part of Brooklyn in New York, and that this is a place which has a huge black community, but an upper middle class black community. So it is also a sign of that you have achieved something, that you have made it at least economically if you live in Fort Greene, which January and Morris are going to do. So it is considered well-off, upper middle class, an area that apparently is associated with creative and professional black excellence. And Desiree is living elsewhere, for example. She has not yet settled in her life. She's of the same age. And this book also shows us the struggle, the different struggles of women, of Afro-American women especially, who are trying to make it in their lives, who are trying to find a point where to live, to settle down, and in which sort of situations. And there's also a lot of aspects of class in this novel. Angela Flournoy also explores in this novel how friends sometimes get together very close. They can be super close, closer than women are in their relationships with men, I believe. And at the same time, they can also be apart for years and then come together again. The stories of these women show that mobility and class for black women in America is never easy, and that they always face isolation, that they can always face isolation and moral fatigue. Desiree, for example, who opens the novel in the first story, she carries the family trauma of her mother dying very young, her father leaving, her grandfather dying an assisted suicide, the separation from her sister. There's a lot of family trauma in Desiree's life. Nakia is a restaurant owner. She's lesbian. She's an entrepreneur. She comes from a very well-off family. And she reaches economic self-determination. But nevertheless, she's also looking for something that you might call wholeness, for something where all her aspirations and all her ways of looking at life come together. Monique, on her side, is a librarian whom we meet only in posts where she is blogging. This reminded me a lot of Americanah by Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie, who has this very successful blogger on the core of her novel. And Monique blogging also about Black life in America. That was very interesting. Monique has been named in a lot of reviews of the book as the least developed character, but I don't think so, because Monique has a certain function in the book. She has the function to comment on Black life in America, and maybe she is closest to the author because she comments on the facts that happen to Black women in America. Her role is different in that book. I had great moments in the book. I really enjoyed large passages of the wilderness. I also enjoyed this beautiful and amazing cover. Look at this. Her writing is poetic, it's intense, it's very emphatic. She has a lot of feelings for her characters. She really puts flesh and bones to her characters, if you know what I mean, if that's correct in English. Angela Flournoy is a very talented writer. And the title, I was wondering, why is this called The Wilderness? Because it plays in Los Angeles, California, and it plays in New York, New York. Almost at the end of the book, the title comes up, and this is not a spoiler when I say where this comes from. In his 1964 Message to the Grassroots, Malcolm X, the great black activist, said, and he used the metaphor of the wilderness of North America, using this as the black experience under white supremacy. It was the wilderness of North America. And Desiree at one point speaks of the wilderness of adult life. And the wilderness is there for these young black women getting older. Angela Flournoy's novel, The Wilderness, begins in realism and ends somewhere far more unsettling. The final chapters of the novel give a real twist. They change a lot. I wouldn't say they change everything, but they give you a completely different setting. And I won't go in what it is because otherwise I would be a super spoiler. At first, I think it was irritating because when I finished that book, honestly, 3 days ago or 2 days ago, I said, oh my God, what is she doing? Why has she done this to her beautiful novel? But then, sleeping on it, as we say in German, I thought, okay. And sleeping twice on it, I think, yeah, okay. That this is intentional. Of course it's intentional. And it's also fitting into the concept of what she was thinking to tell us with this book. And remember the title, The Wilderness. The novel's great subject is how people born with every promise of mobility still live inside structures that constrict them. By widening the frame so suddenly in the end, Flournoy externalizes that pressure, the atmosphere of control, precarity, and fear that has always surrounded her characters in a way over the years. And in those different years, this atmosphere has become impossible to ignore, thanks to the last chapters. The result is jarring and illuminating, a reminder that security, personal or national, can vanish in a breath in 5 minutes. Whether readers embrace this leap or resist it, I want to know from you as a reader. Please tell me all about that in the comments down below. Tell me all about that and about the writing of Angela Flournoy, which I absolutely adored, I absolutely love. I will try to put the Turner list on my TBR. I have so many books on my TBR, as you know, which make it difficult. And I think it's a great novel, and I would give it absolutely a 4-star review. Thanks very much for watching this video. Read The Wilderness and tell me all about it in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel, leave me a like, and, well, I hope to see you very soon in another one. I say see you later, bye-bye, and thank you for watching. Bye.